Hello, everybody. Welcome to this stream. How is everybody this morning? As you can probably see over there on the other side of the screen, we have Chris Thoburn, aka Runspired, coming to join us for a special stream today. How are you getting on? Welcome.
Good morning.
So I will also
I'm
turn
just
on
over
the.
here furiously downloading the Twitch live streaming app for my phone so that I can look at the comments while I also have you on full screen.
Brilliant. So the first comment so far has just been Captain Skydiver saying hey. Um, I have a thing on the stream where I know who Captain Skydiver is, but I don't usually call out his uh, name unless they say it's okay. So I'm not going to. Okay. Also, another thing, Chris, that I probably didn't tell you. We do 25-minute Pomodoros on this stream. So we'll work for a little bit and then take a 5-minute Pomodoro break, just chatting break. And then, yeah, essentially that's it. And we do it a few times until the time runs out.
I like this.
Ah.
I mean, especially because I'm going to need thinking breaks. We're about to dive into an RFC that I wrote, I don't even remember how many years ago. So I'm going to have to reread this to even know what we're doing. And it's early for me. I'm normally waking up about 3 hours from now.
Yes. So time zones are awful, for one. Uh, let's let's give everybody a bit of well, I won't say a reminder because you've not been on the stream before, but also a lot of people on this stream aren't really in the Ember community. So maybe give a quick background on yourself and where you are and why we have time zone issues.
Well, currently I am in Scottsdale, Arizona. I normally would be in Oakland, California. So I'm one time zone closer to you right now than normal. But what is the difference there? Normally like 8 hours, I think.
Yeah,
It's
for
it's
California, it's 8 hours. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's the main issue there. Um, but background, been a pretty much a JavaScript only developer for about 15 years now. Hopped on that bandwagon really early, and then I started with Ember back around 2012 and didn't look back. Over my time I worked with that, I worked my way into the Ember Data core team. Mostly I got tricked into that. I had been working on lots of add-ons and been very happy and building all these things that made people productive and made them happy. And I really didn't like Ember Data. In fact, I hated Ember Data, and I had listed all my complaints to Igor, who was on the Ember Data core team at one point, about how everything with it was broken, everything needed changed. And then I went to this little company you've never heard of called LinkedIn, and they also used Ember Data, and they needed to fix Ember Data, and so was well. I like fixing broken things, so I guess I'll be fixing broken things. And here I am, many years later, on the core team, and I still have these mixed feelings because I still think we have lots of broken things, but I also, can recognize now that it's made a lot of progress, and I'm pleased with that, and I'm a lot happier with where it is today.
Cool. So, um, so Ember Data again. For people who aren't Emberistas, who don't actually know that, it's one of the core data libraries that we use for Ember. It's been a little bit of a bone of contention that for some people it's like, should it be included by default? I personally very much love Ember Data, and that's why I'm really happy that we are getting a chance to work on it today. But if you generate yourself a new Ember app, it's right there. It's in the dependencies, and it can be really productive to get going. And the one of the things that we're talking about today is um, mostly if you follow if you follow JSON API, your backend, then you sometimes don't need to do anything for Ember Data to just work. But the RFC in question is what was it? It was links and something. Record Ember
Links in
Data
meta,
record
and
links and meta.
specifically links in meta for records.
Okay, cool.
So I
So
can give some background on that in 1 second, but I am almost finally able to pull you up on my phone to have the live chat also be present for
nice.
myself.
I'm trying to
Okay.
get
I
I'm trying to get the music working because usually I have let me see, audio output capture, desktop audio. Maybe that'll work. Oh, that's probably a bad idea actually if I do that because it'll add all the things. Ooh, what's that? Oh, we have a new follower, Runspired. I need to move you down underneath
yeah.
this,
All
I
right.
think. And then I'm going to replay that, see if it goes on top of you. There we go. New follower, Runspired. Yes. You're in. Let's do this.
I mean,
I think we're going to go without music today because my audio setup is a bit broken. And you usually have to restart everything if you want to fix that.
so yeah. So I can
Cool.
start talking about this particular RFC if you want.
Yes, that would be great.
So the idea here is JSON API allows you to have links for resources and metadata for resources, and links and metadata can exist at multiple levels within the payload. So if you made a request and the request responses come back, you could have this top level links and meta at the very top of the document that's returned. But then you would have within that document individual resources, and each individual resource could also have links and meta. And then within that, you might have on an individual resource a relationship. And that relationship is a pointer to another resource. And that pointer could itself store links and meta. So you just have tons of different locations where links and meta might show up in your payload. Ember Data did not begin its history as a JSON API consuming library. It was not built and optimized for JSON API. JSON API actually grew out of Ember Data's needs, which is a whole different another story. And because of this, even though there's historically been this pretty tight relationship between the two, there's lots of areas where the spec does one thing and allows one thing, and Ember Data has never allowed for it. And there was this Quest issue a long time ago. Hey, let's go get Ember Data to be fully JSON API compliant or whatnot, something along those lines. And we had detailed out all these different places where we didn't have compliance, many of which we've never reached compliance for because there just wasn't a clear path for how to do it with the primitives that we had then. And there's a better path for that today, but it's still going to require some re-architecting. And one of the biggest misalignments here is that the data coming back for a resource has a rich structure that describes its schema. So if we're looking here at the screen right now, within this response, this is what we would call a collection response. So
Mhm.
the collection, it's a collection response specifically because the data member here, the top level data member, is an array instead of a single object, meaning that it's giving you potentially multiple articles. In this case, we can see the type here is articles for that primary data member. And so within this resource, within this article with ID1, we see that we have a property called type. We have a property called ID. We have a hash of attributes. We have a hash of relationships. We have a property that's a hash called links. We don't actually have any resource level meta on this particular resource, but we could.
I think if we go into the spec, we might get them meta info. So that one is a top level meta.
That's a top level meta, but you can also have meta on a resource. If we look at a resource object on the left, under document
This one
structure,
here.
yep, right there, you can see it highlighted up above. It's not in the example, but any resource object may contain
There we
any of
go.
these
Yes,
top
yes,
level
yes.
members.
A meta object. Cool.
So,
yeah. Okay.
so there's this really rich structure to a resource, which is great because it helps you work with that data more easily. Like you know what things are going to be pointers, what things aren't going to be pointers. For things that are pointers, you don't necessarily have to load in a specific list of pointers. Let's say it is a post with comments, and you've got a million comments because you're the most viral LinkedIn post ever or something like that. You wouldn't want to load in a million comments in their payload. You probably wouldn't even want to load in the IDs of a million comments in your payload. But instead, you can just load some links. Those links might have, first page, last page, next page, that kind of stuff
Oh, that's
for
interesting.
pagination.
So in this case here, we have relationships, author, and comments. And essentially, what we're saying is, would we not load the data in that case if we didn't want
Well,
to have the IDs?
if we didn't want to, we would just leave the data member off and would just rely on the links.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Oh, I want this even more now. Can we do this today, please?
So unfortunately, where we're working today is not going to be the relationship links. We actually
Okay.
do support relationship links already, but we don't support the pagination links, and that is
Yeah, that's a
an
whole other
RFC I've
thing. Yeah.
tried to get through twice and hasn't happened yet. We're better situated today than we used to be though, and
Yeah.
the objections last time were, well, you're trying to build this thing that uses identifiers, but we don't have identifiers in Ember Data yet. Okay, so I got identifiers in Ember Data. Can we do this now? We're trying to build this thing that requires operations. We don't have operations yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Where we're going to be working today specifically within this resource object at the top level of the resource object. So alongside attributes, alongside relationships, alongside type and ID, can we have links and can we have meta for a record? And okay, we have a question of which RFC
Yeah,
is
so I
this
was just
about?
going to say, so we've
This
got a
is
new follower and a first time chatter, Roog. Roog? Is that how I pronounce it? Thanks for the follow. Much appreciated. And I did just share the RFC. I think a lot of the times when I do my intro early in the stream, people miss it and they join after. So, yeah, I think other more experienced or professional streamers have like reminders happening every 10 minutes, just like, oh, this is what we're working on today. I really should do that because that would be super useful.
my level of
Cool.
streaming was I asked Chris, do I have to download Twitch or not? Uh, yeah, so I'm just excited to be sitting here talking with you again.
And we
Our
have a
listeners
first
won't
time
know, but
chatter
you and I
again.
got to talk.
We have one closer to your time zone. Bento Cantu 93. Good morning from Mexico. Good morning.
All right.
Nice and early. But yeah,
Yeah.
so okay, I personally have a good feeling of what the context is now. Obviously I am it's a little bit intimidating, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie. To get from having a chat about this and it's like, oh yeah, we'll just add in some meta and some links. It's totally fine. To, oh, what do I do in Ember Data? So I guess the first thing I need to make sure I actually have a clone of this thing. Let's go over here and
Well,
ignore the
while you're
fact that
doing
I
that,
have.
I'll keep chatting about the RFC because
Cool.
there's the reason this was an RFC was actually because there was this big question of how do we even support this? given that you have this rich verbose structure for what this data coming back is, and it's not flat. And what I mean by not flat is you have type and ID at one level, you have links and meta at that same level, and then you
Hmm.
have your attributes, which are in a hash, and you have your relationships, which are in a hash.
Hmm.
But in terms of a namespace, all of the properties within relationships and all of the properties within attributes, as well as in theory, type and ID, share a namespace.
Okay.
And links and meta don't share that namespace in any spec.
So let
So
me
you
let me see if I can summarize that from the other direction. So you're telling me that in Ember Data right now, if you were to just like make it so that you do like this particular article dot links, they could have been links in the attributes,
It
but
could
that
have been
could
an
also,
attribute. It could have even been a relationship.
or could have been a meta.
And
But I
and,
think
and not a,
in meta that's in a different namespace because you have to do meta dot links then in that scenario. There wouldn't be a clash.
uh, that wouldn't be a clash, correct? The meta.links wouldn't be a clash. But attributes.links could be a clash. Relationships.links could be a clash.
Relationships
And
dot links.
and
Oh
in
yeah.
specific and when you do this, it's not because like looking at the what we have in front of us, it's not because author can have links. It's because you could literally have a property that is the relationship called links,
Yeah.
unrelated to the concept of links.
Yeah.
You could literally have a property called meta,
Yeah.
unrelated to the concept of meta. So
Which is perfect here
because you,
because like articles is a great example. Like you're writing articles for your website, it's got a bunch of links in the article that you want to list at the bottom, and that's the clash. Like, and
yeah,
that's like I and
something like that,
with a
that's
lot
the
of times
clash.
like this, it's like, oh, that'll never happen. People wouldn't do that, but it's such a normal thing to have links as a name of the model, and that's like, no, we can't not do that. That's yeah. I think actually I had a similar problem recently that I got
Yeah.
reverted in some version of Ember Data where I think content is like a special word in Ember Data, and I have like overused that in everything Empress that has ever existed. Content is like a name in your
it,
attributes.
it It's not actually a special word in Ember Data, but it is. And we had to enforce that you couldn't name something content because in a proxy in Ember, historically, the proxied object, the target object, was keyed as the word content. And so Ember obviously much older as a framework than native proxies are in
Mm-hmm,
JavaScript.
mm-hmm.
It's for lots of good reasons had a concept of a proxy for a very long time, and that concept worked entirely because the whole community adopted using .get and .set, and .get and .set under the hood instead of using dot notations like you normally would. .get and .set under the hood would say, oh, this property doesn't exist on this object, but are we a proxy? And if we're a
Yeah.
proxy, then we will go look at content and try to find it there. Well, in Ember Data, we used proxies for async relationships so that once they had loaded, you could just immediately access the values in your template versus having to figure out a way of resolving that value
Yeah.
first, which was super handy, especially because back then we didn't have things like async await. Promises were barely in use when this was first written. It was a nice, convenient thing at the time, but it meant that if you have a record that's going to be used in a relationship and it has a property called content, and that record is in an async relationship, when you access that content, you're not getting the property you think you're getting. You're recursively getting the same record over and over again because you're just getting what you were proxying to. So people kept hitting this, and finally we were just like, you know what? Like clearly people can't figure this out. We're just going to ban this as a property name for now, so that uh, this doesn't happen anymore. Um,
think I might have
so
actually
that's
had
the
that reverted though, so I don't know if it's been reintroduced or something, but something to
yeah.
look into.
I That's always the risk with Ember Data is like any change, half the world is mad at you and half the world loves you. So
For sure.
it's a very when you have a library as used as Ember Data is, there's no such thing as an uncontroversial or safe
Yeah.
change, and it leads us to moving a lot slower than we would sometimes like. That said, this RFC was written because we said, okay, well, Ember Data models unfortunately don't have the rich structure that JSON API has. Ember data models are flat, meaning that all of those attributes and all of those relationships in that share a namespace are flattened down to one object representation, which is what you work with in your UI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which means that if you had an attribute named links, or you had an attribute named meta, or you had a relationship named links, or a relationship named meta, and we were to add support to the record for these resource level links and meta, we're now in a conflict.
Yeah.
So what do we do? So this RFC, and I forget the exact thing, so we're going to literally need to reread the RFC because it's been years since I wrote this. But this
Literally
RFC,
years.
literally years. It's probably been 4 years. We can look at the date, but
Yeah.
I think it's been 4 years
So
since I wrote this.
2018
Um,
October. So not
okay,
quite 4 years, but getting there.
not quite 4 years, but we're getting there. Um, so the idea behind this RC though was basically we're going to figure out if you have specified on your model that links in meta are an actual attribute or an actual relationship.
Hmm.
And if they are, we
Yep.
defer to
So
yours.
you're shadowing it
But
essentially,
if they're
and
not,
we could even put in a
yeah,
lint to say, oh, by the way, you're shadowing links and meta. So if you want that to come through, you might want to blah 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 blah.
yeah, we could do something along that lines. So yeah, so this kind of just talks about the mechanics of how we're going to do that later down in this RFC of
Mm-hmm.
if do.
Keep going. Links and meta exposes getters an instance of DS model. Default to null if no meta or links have been provided. Shared
Okay,
namespace problem.
we're going to put them on snapshots. That's good to know.
That's good
There we
to know.
go.
Yeah. Links and meta specs type. Some apps have taken this to move links and meta into attributes on the serializer. Oh, that's interesting. Interesting. So, yeah, there's another place where we could. I guess it's harder to kind of. Yeah. I guess it's just something that we do on the model to kind of warn them. Oh, by the way, you don't want to do this. How do we teach this?
Well,
Drawbacks, alternatives.
well, we were in that discussion above. One of the things that we're calling out is because people hit this limitation of, hey, I can't access these links and I can't access this meta on my model.
Mm-hmm.
Their workaround for this was to literally make them attributes,
Yeah.
and they were just moving them over, and they were just doing this themselves, right? That way,
Yeah.
which has always been a nice solution to this but it also means that you got to then write a bunch of serializer code and do something that you feel ugly about and hate yourself and look at every day and think, oh, maybe I should delete that. So let's let them delete that now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Exactly. And it's if we do add it as like a lint warning or something or an error, then it's perfect for them to like, oh, it gives them an indication when they do an upgrade to the version of Ember Data that has this and the corresponding linter rules or whatever, that it's like, okay, cool. Yep, I can delete this now. Great. Let's do this.
and Azalea confirms that he's used this technique, or they would use this technique.
Okay, cool. So it's interesting because as RFCs go, this is quite a small one. Like, I
It
know
is.
we've talked about the challenges, obviously, but I'm feeling undue
And
confidence right now.
an undue confidence. And I will say, when this was written, the reason it didn't get implemented overnight was mostly because we were trying to keep some things around for new contributors, and we felt this would be one of the simpler things to implement.
Perfect. Great.
I mean, we would
And
still sit down and guide people, but it seemed like it'd be simpler to implement. Unfortunately, two things have happened since this RFC was written and accepted, and that will complicate our
okay.
journey today. The first is an RFC was written for record data
Hmm.
as a cache. So that's 293 up above. That RFC started before this RFC, but was accepted later.
Oh, interesting.
0293.
293 record data. I wonder if I can open in a new tab. Is that going to break? Did somebody break links? No, they didn't break links. Fantastic. Oh, look, an ASCII art. That's brilliant.
Oh yeah. So this RFC introduced a way of plugging the cache. So in
Oh,
Ember Data, pretty much every single thing is pluggable. This RFC is where that began.
oh,
And
interesting.
there's actually a second RFC that has been accepted but not fully implemented yet, in which we changed this interface to a V2, in which it's a singleton cache instead of a per record cache,
Okay.
which unlocks all sorts of nice things. We don't need to talk about all that though, but it's going to complicate this because uh, I don't think we ever introduced links and meta APIs to record data.
Okay. So there's more to do.
So
Okay, so I'm going
there's more
to
to do.
I know we didn't do any programming yet, but I'm still going to do a Pomodoro break, where we might lose Chris for a second because I just recall that I haven't added him to the other source. So I will be back in a minute.
Hi.
Uh, yes, exactly as I suspected, we have lost Chris. Let me just add him back in. Browser source, add source, OBS Ninja guest. Nick says you are lost to the void now, Chris. So you're back. People can hear you again. This is going to be a very poor setup. I don't know where to put you. I don't have a place for you. You're gonna hover over my head in the Pomodoro break, just so that we don't put the chat above your face. Maybe I'll put you down here. I'm looming above you because I have my green screen, but your
I
background
just
is
gotta
kind
come in.
of. uh, yeah, I think I'm gonna need a new UI design when I've got a guest. You are totally right.
And I will continue to eat my breakfast.
Nice one. Oh god, you're making me jealous. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is good. So it's interesting. I think I might have, the contributor uh uh tag on GitHub because I think I've just committed something, as I said, that was a reverting of other people's work. So I am a first time uh contributor to Ember Data if we get this done. But it's also kind of cool that we're doing it on stream because on Twitch the stream lasts for 2 weeks, but I upload them to YouTube afterwards. So this stream will persist forever, and hopefully
Great.
it will be an inspiration to people that I don't know what I'm doing, but I could still get this done with a little bit of help. And yeah, I definitely feel like there's a feeling in open source that people who build things are a different class and they're like much smarter than the average human, but 90% of the time we're making bugs, we're searching Stack Overflow. We have no idea what we're doing. But yeah, that's hopefully what
I think
this
the
will
the
be.
difference between me and someone less experienced than me is the number of things that I know the keywords to search Stack Overflow for.
You know, that
That's
is one of my biggest criticisms of Ruby, because like I see some random syntax that I like Google's like strips all the extra characters. How do I search for what does a dot 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 b actually do? You know, it's like, oh god, I can't search for this.
all right. So
So we've got another minute and
uh,
a half in the break, and but we're getting some chats in the stream. Nozilla, known Nonazilla. Oh, known as Ilya. Oh, I've been reading that wrong for 1,000 years. Um, but yeah, so known as Ilya agrees with me on the Ruby syntax. Uh,
who I think is on vacation, given that they said Mexico, because I'm
oh,
pretty sure I
so
remember them living in the Midwest, but I could be
so
very wrong on that.
Rug is in Mexico, I think.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
oh no, sorry, no. Bento Cantu 93 was the one who said they were in Mexico. I got to scroll.
Aha.
Do you know what would be pretty cool? Uh, known as Ilya will be in Mexico
Venezuela's
next week.
headed.
Almost like we predicted it. We knew. We're not following you, we swear.
We knew.
um, but yeah, I'd love to see, like, okay, it's great we've got the chat and lots of people participating and stuff. Um, but I'd love to have like a little map of where everybody's connected from. You know, it's one of those like vanity graphs or whatever. It doesn't actually give you anything useful, but I think it'd be pretty cool. I actually have to go to Mexico at some point. Um, never been, never been.
Me too. Um, but my Mexico adventure is going to be a very interesting experience if and when it ever happens. Like I'm not sure it'll happen because what I want to do is go run. Like anywhere I go, I want
Yeah.
to go run. And typically that means I want to run in very remote, mountainous, awesome looking places. However, the territory of Mexico that I'm really interested in going and running in also is kind of infamous for um, lots of
Ah.
activity and fields. So the particular kind of risk that one faces in those areas is higher than the typical trip
Oh
to
god.
Mexico.
That is interesting and terrifying in equal measures. Okay, so we are back to programming. Another 25 minutes.
All right.
Nick is asking, did the audio break? My computer is struggling a little bit, so it could have broken, but it should probably be okay.
And I am using AirPods to a MacBook that's tethered to an iPad, so I
That's being
on the other side of the
beamed
world. So
across
I'm
the
sure
world.
it's
Yeah. Oh god, this is definitely a miracle that it's working. Okay, so I have Ember Data uh, cloned, updated. I've created a new branch of master. I guess I should have asked you if that's a good thing to do because
that is the correct thing to do.
oh, I'm
And
one behind
we need
master.
to get that.
Um,
Did that literally just go out? No.
what are we?
Oh, you
26th,
must have.
28th. No, I just
No,
missed it
that's
when I right
yeah, that's two
clicked.
days ago.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
reset hard to.
I'm always fascinated seeing who uses this UI for Git and GitHub. I've never been a user. I've always been a command line person.
Well, so
But
I
then working
I
in a company where most people use it now.
so I wrote a whole like ode to stop using command line and just use a UI um on on my company blog, simplabs.com blog. I think it was like named Git Good
Oh, I read that,
because
and then similar to our conversation, which others haven't heard yet. Hint, hint. An upcoming podcast will feature both of us, Chris's. But similar to a conversation you all won't have heard yet, at least if you're listening to this live. I read this and I had so many disagreements that I probably could do like a 5-hour talk with you over just
Uh,
why I feel you're wrong about this.
we do need to create a
But
Chris cast, don't we? Where we're just like two of us
yeah,
coming into every conversation ready with a list of things that we disagree with, and then not to spoil the podcast, just spend the time agreeing with each other on like broader points.
yeah. Well, you were at a disadvantage there, and I knew it because I had the ability to have listened to what you had said before and actually did come in with a list. And I didn't want to just be the dude with a list against the dude without a list. So
Oh, that's very good. I like that. And Bento Cantu 93 agrees with you. Command line +1. I don't know. How do I kick people from the chat? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Don't mind me. Okay, so now we're definitely up with master. I need to get rid of one of these screens. I have a particular setup and this thing keeps bouncing between screens. So we're in line with upstream master and I have a no changes
great.
data on a new branch. So let me tell you how I would usually tackle this. I would probably spend my time trying to find a test that I would like change the assertion on. So I could have it failing and then go from that to starting to poke around like, oh, that's failing because this, and then like going deeper and deeper. Now that I have somebody who knows the guts of this thing sitting in front of me, like, is that what you would do, or would you go
I,
more bottom
I
up
would start by
approach
writing a test, but I would write a fully new test.
or
And
new test?
in this
Interesting.
case, I'd probably write a new file because it is for an actual like feature versus just a modification or a bug fix. Um,
So my
this
first
one is
instinct would
complicated
be
because
model because we've now got packages. This is a monorepo. So
yeah,
the question is, where
yes,
does
this
the
is
file
another thing
go?
that changed since this RFC came in that made it just slightly more complicated to go figure out.
Record data.
Yeah. So our trouble here is where to put the test, and the reason this is trouble is because we're not writing a feature that touches only one part of the system. We're
Mm.
writing a feature that's going to touch many parts of the system. So we're going to need to make sure that the JSON API serializer is preserving the links and meta on resources.
The
We're going to
JSON
need to
API
make sure
serializer is preserving the
going to be in the
links and meta
serializer
on the
package.
resourcer. Okay, cool. Interesting.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
We're going to need to make sure that when it's pushed to the store, that data gets into the record data cache. We're then going to need to make sure that we are
Record
able
data
to access
cache
that information off of the model.
off
So this
of
is three
the
different packages that
model.
we're
Okay.
talking about
3
so
open
far.
so far. Yeah.
And then ultimately, we also have to be able to access this information off of the snapshot, which comes out of what we call Ember Data core, which is all in the store package.
That's all in the store package. Where's our store package?
The
Down
store
here. Okay.
package is really our core package. And now, in terms of tests, uh, when we split up into packages, the part we never finished was getting tests migrated to the individual packages.
Okay.
We actually do run the test infrastructure in a way where we can author tests in the individual packages. We just haven't moved the tests there.
Okay.
So in the interest of not accidentally bumping into unknowns, let's just author these tests somewhere that we're already writing tests, which is going to be in the legacy package, which is the dash Ember data package up at the
Oh,
very top.
okay. Right. I
So
was just
this
going to say
legacy
there's no
package,
tests in any of the other things. I'm like,
yeah,
uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this legacy package is basically if you install Ember Data as the package name Ember Data, you're installing this package.
Hmm.
And what all that this package is doing is it is declared all the other packages as its dependencies,
Yep.
and then it does a tiny bit of wiring to get them together, not very much. But
Okay.
mostly it just preserves the legacy imports as well. So if you used to import things from ember data slash versus at ember data slash,
Hmm.
then the reason that still works is we're literally re-exporting everything in add-on up above here
Okay.
in this package
Interesting.
at the old paths.
Oh, interesting. So you're
But
taking
none of
it
the code,
from Ember Data adapter. Interesting.
none of the actual code is in this package anymore. It's just re-exports at this point.
Cool. Awesome. And a
Uh,
lot of tests, which is good. This makes me feel
and a lot
a
of
bit more
tests.
comfortable. I was opening down here and you're like, oh, we're going to add a record, record data
Yeah.
test or something. It's like, uh-oh.
So,
Didn't like that.
so I think let's start this as maybe an acceptance level test since we want to test so many different parts of the system. Let's
Cool.
just kind of like poke our way through.
Like an end-to-end kind of thing.
So
Do you
yeah, so
you recommend that I
I
generate
say
that test, or should we just create a file that
no.
is
Let's just
okay?
create a new file here within the acceptance folder and let's call it something like record links and meta test or something like that.
Rec links meta .js. .js, interesting.
Great.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then we'll
So
probably want to steal some
yeah, let's steal a little
boiler.
bit of the setup from one of these others. But
We
this
got it's a module anyway. Yeah, cool. We'll steal
yeah.
this and then we'll delete what we don't need. So they have classes and layouts in tracking model ID test, which I assume
Yeah,
we wouldn't
we're
need
not
because
gonna
we're
need
not.
that.
Yeah. And I assume we don't need an
Well, I shouldn't say we're not
adapter.
gonna need it. We are gonna need an adapter eventually.
Okay.
But
Get rid of the layout and the widget.
let's yeah,
Um,
let's get rid of. We can get
guess
rid
we'll
of.
need a model, would we?
We will need a model. So let's actually start there. That's a great place to start. Um, we probably will want to eventually do a rendering test, but we're going to start with just the JavaScript only. The
Hmm.
rendering test is going to come in because if we don't do this from the beginning, someone will come back and complain that, hey, my meta or my links were updated and I was displaying it in my template and then it didn't update the template. So we got to make sure that the template can consume it and receive updates.
Cool.
And that's a whole fun deep dive there on how we do that because people kind of expect it in the to just be like tracked, right? They want to treat their model properties like
Yes.
they're tracked properties.
Yes.
eh, But
Actually, I think I remember
but
having a
we
big
can't,
conversation with you about this in
yeah,
Portland in the year before the world imploded in a burger place near the conference. And you were talking to me about the difference
probably.
about like essentially trying to integrate Ember Data into the tracked world and it being like these primitives that just didn't exist in early days of Octane yet.
They didn't. I mean, actually, we ended up writing a lot of our own primitives for this,
Mm-hmm.
and we ended up doing a bunch of RFC work to build our own internal tracking system because we can't actually use tracked for
Interesting.
various reasons. And that's fun. And it's actually kind of a fundamental problem. Tracked is a pull-based reactivity system.
Yeah.
Ember data by nature must be push-based.
Because you're getting stuff from the server that could be updating
From
something that's entirely
yeah,
like as we saw, and this is a kind of a strength and a huge weakness of JSON API and therefore Ember Data, I think. It's really cool because you can have articles that can have relationships to something. So you ask for let's say just one article. It has an author, but then your response comes back with, hey, oh, by the way, I'm just going to shove a person into your uh, store or whatever the case is, and then you're expected to then react accordingly to that. And that's great from a developer experience, but I imagine that's really hard when you're developing at this level.
Well, an easy way to envision this is because this is really not a limitation of Ember Data. This is a limitation that data handling has in general.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to try to write your own code to handle an API response and you wanted it to play into the reactivity model with tracked, you would use fetch. And then when you got the response, if you knew that you were going to be getting reissuing that fetch request periodically and updating that response and needing things to replace, you would have to set a tracked property somewhere.
Yeah,
That's the equivalent of a push, right?
yeah,
That's you pushing the notification, right? You have to set tracked property somewhere. And if you want to do that on a granular level, on a per attribute, per relationship, per resource, per collection, I don't whatever your granularity is, somewhere that set must occur. And if the more of these sets that you need to do, or the more situations you get, the more complex those situations get, the more that you need realize that, hey, I need to coordinate how those sets are happening.
yeah.
And in especially because if you, let's say that you had written a whole bunch of nice classes, like you write a user class and it has all these tracked properties that are one-to-one with the response you're getting from your API. And so you kind of just push the API object into it and then sets itself on each tracked property. Well, that means that to do that, you will have to have iterated over everything in your payload and deconstructed it and gotten it into that object form, into that
Yeah.
class. So you're already doing a whole lot of work, right? It is push based. Because the moment the API response comes back, you have to do all this work. And in Ember Data, we have an additional complexity on top of that, which is that we are supporting classic Ember syntax and modern Ember syntax because we are forced to support one, everything that's not deprecated, because we
Mm-hmm.
haven't
Mm-hmm.
deprecated classic syntax yet. But two, we support backwards 2 LTS releases of Ember. And so for almost all of the 3.x cycle, we had to support synchronous observers at the same time that the whole
Wow.
world moved to async observers.
I didn't even think
So
about that. Ouch.
yeah, as the reactive, we basically at the point that with 3.2.8, our last 3.2.8 release, we were basically fully supporting 3 different reactivity models: sync observers, async observers, and tracked,
Amazing.
which got really frustrating because every time we'd fix one of them and break the other one. it
Yeah.
it yeah. So we have our own notification system at this point. We have our own infrastructure that plays into the tracked infrastructure at this point that we try to use as consistently as we can so that things just work for our end users. So that's where some of our complexity will probably come from today. But let's
Cool.
start writing this test.
Cool.
And the best way to
So,
start writing this test is let's write a model that is exactly going to show the problem that we have.
oh, the actual problem.
So
Boom.
let's
Let's
write,
do it.
yeah.
Uh,
So let's write two
oh,
models. The first model, we'll give it an adder named meta, and the second model will give it no adder named meta.
we're going to call this
A great way of
our
naming this is model with meta,
with meta.
or model with model with meta adder.
Yeah, because then in our test, why is it? Wait, tell me this.
You can
Why
do it
would?
either way.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. It's just seems odd to me, and we don't need this for now because that was from the previous test. Model with
Yeah.
meta adder, and then we're going to have model with links adder. Should we do one with both? Both?
Well, so we can just do. How about we call it one with model with collisions and one with model without collisions?
Cool. Uh, How you spell collisions? So in that case, we can put both of them in here, right? Is that what you mean?
Yes,
And then
that's what
we
I
would
mean.
have
And
model without. Has this broken my defined but never used? So it's changed. I think one of these, I think maybe links has caused the colors to change. But anyway, it's fine.
interesting. We
Yeah.
can remove line 22 because that's the
Okay.
collision. Like we
Yes,
don't
of
want that.
course.
Yeah.
Copy pasta.
Right. Um, the yeah, that's interesting. I've never seen that happen before.
I'm still holding out on Adam, and Adam has these sorts of errors all the time. Like this is my life. So
Ah, okay.
yeah,
I yet. That's how behind you I am. Um,
yeah. I refuse to
so
upgrade because the even though it's kind of slowly fraying around the edges because nobody's working on it, the GitHub experience on Adam is still 1,000 times better than code. Like committing partial commits with your keyboard, it's just better. Anyway, we will not get into that conversation too much. Okay, cool.
so
We
let's
have two
talk about
models.
the naming here. Um, I care about naming in tests way
Mm-hmm.
more than the next person, in part because Ember Data's tests can get very complicated.
Yes.
And when I come back to this test later, I want as many sanity checks in place to make sure that the test hasn't deviated over time, because test
Yeah.
drift is a big problem. Like if you accidentally lose the context of why the test was written. So in this case, we chose model with collisions and model without collisions because now when I'm playing with this later, I understand why this thing was written. Right?
Yeah.
As I'm reading the rest of the code, I'm like, hey, wait, why am I adding adder links to model without collisions, right? Um,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
make that
Very
stand
good
out.
point.
Great.
Very good point.
So the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to edit the adapter. And in this case, let's do find record. So we can just change where online, yeah, just change create record to say find record.
Okay. Cool. What is the point here? Uh,
So why are we doing this?
why
Well,
are we overriding
for this
just an
test,
API
since
adapt?
we don't
Oh.
actually need to hit network for this test, right? We just need data to come back, right?
Okay.
So
Now
we're
I get
just
you.
going to resolve the data that we want.
Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is that you said that this is about model links,
Yes.
not top level links. So, first of all, our
Right.
data has to be an array.
It doesn't
Is that
have to be
right?
an array.
Oh, it doesn't.
So let's, no. In fact, in this case, since it's find record, we're expecting data to be a single object. What we're going to
Okay.
do is we're just going to do a clever little switch statement here, or if statement here.
Mm-hmm.
Find record, I think it's the third argument, is going to be ID.
Something,
So find
something,
record,
something
it's going to be
ID.
store. First argument store.
I've been using Rust
That's a discussion
recently.
on self.
And I like
This one is
in Rust where
schema.
you can do I think it's what are they? Match statements, I think they're called, and you can put underscores where you're like, I don't care about this, get rid of it.
This
Uh,
argument is schema, but we can actually deconstruct it and just take model name off of it right here.
oh, really? Is
Yeah.
it like that?
Yep. And
Cool.
then so it's store, and then I think it's the third argument, but let's just double check that real quick and make sure.
So where would I check that? Should I check the API docs?
The API docs are a great way to do that.
Okay. API docs. Let's try and break my computer because it's really trying to slow down at the moment. And it is what were we? Was it the
You're
adapter
gonna
we're
look
on?
for the Ember Data adapter package, or go that way. Yep.
Yeah, this is
And
usually where I
then,
go, and I usually go find record, and we have store type ID.
yeah, great.
And
You'll
cool.
also notice that there's a snapshot in here,
Yes, that comes
but we
afterwards.
don't need that one for this. We'll
Okay.
want that later.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
So
That's good.
let's come back here.
So you want to
We're good.
do a
All right.
switch
So
statement.
now,
So we're essentially going to go links, and we want to say that. Did you want to do it on the ID?
no. So I want to do it before we return, because if the model
Ah,
name is
yes. Cool.
without
Cool.
collisions, we're going to return one shape, and if it's with collisions, we're going to return a different shape.
Cooly booly. So let me do this. And then we can inject into it if we wanted to. If.
Yep.
And did you say model? Is it the ID that you wanted to be switching on or whatever?
We're going to switch off of model name.
Oh, okay.
So basically, if model name is, let's just do with dash collisions.
Ah, yes, because we've model with collisions. Okay. Yes. Now I get you. I missed that one. Well, hold on. Would we not want to return things, the data the same in both cases? No.
The data will be a little different,
Okay.
right?
Oh, so I see
So
what you mean.
on,
So you're trying to say, yeah, I'm not sure I get this quite yet, but you want the data with collisions to
it might make
be,
more sense once we type out the structure.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, so this
something
is
that
with collisions. So yes,
looks,
data that links. Yep.
and we want it to be something
Probably
like
a self
self,
link.
maybe. Yeah, because
Yep.
that feels very JSON API to me.
Great.
And
And
we want
then
that
data
to
that meta.
be, I guess it doesn't matter, but
Yeah, we could just leave it like that if we want.
something like that. And you want to put in a data.meta here as well.
Yep.
And we can
And
do, what are we doing? This is, so type is actually with collisions, attribute name, contraption, meta.
so we don't need to
Uh,
set type like
count.
this. On line 28, if you make with collisions just be model name instead, and you make ID just be the ID that we passed in.
Good shape. This is why it is great to pair with somebody. Pairing is caring. I'm going to get that on a t-shirt now. Cool. Count is, I
Great. So
always see meta counts. That seems like a good idea.
yeah. So this is a great way of doing it. So then what I additionally want to do here is we're gonna change this just slightly, right? So let's actually go ahead and put the links in the meta we have here on the initial data object that we're initializing.
Cool.
And then with collisions, we're still going to set links in meta, but we're going to set them into the attributes hash.
I gotcha. Ah, yes, that's going to be interesting. Links. And we want to have meta. That'll be count 8.
So down here,
And you want
41
that to
will
be
be data.attributes.links.
cool.
And
And
let's
that's
make
the
it
bit that I
clear that
didn't.
this is something else. So on line, instead of the object on line 41 to 43, let's return something like false. Like just make it a value that's totally
Falsy is
not
probably not a
going to look like
great
a JSON API.
idea. What I would probably do here is I'd probably do no no links.
Great.
Oh yes,
And
no
in
link.
meta, we can do an object for meta because adder works with objects. It doesn't track the internal stuff, but like
Yeah.
it'll track the top level thing. But we could do an object here, or we could also do something like a primitive as value for meta as well.
Because that sounds like the sort of thing that people would do. They'd want to move the
Let's do
count
that, but let's
into
set it to a different number. Let's set it to a number
929.
other than meta.count. Great.
996. I don't know why 996. If somebody can find a reason,
All
that
right.
would be great. Okay, so
996.
we've got a Pomodoro break. I missed the end of the thing. So let's go to just chatting. And you're still here. This is great. It's almost like I'm a professional streamer. Okay. So how is everybody enjoying this? How are you enjoying this, first of all, Chris? Is this all you hoped for and more?
I I wish I had my super high speed internet and giant monitor right now, but outside of that, it's kind of fun.
See, the thing is, be careful what you wish for, because if you had your super high speed internet and your giant monitor, you would be up even earlier than you were up today. So, swings and roundabouts. How about our chat? How many people we've got? Oh, we've got a bunch of people. We've got 10 viewers at the moment. That's not bad. Are we enjoying ourselves? We've gotten a bit of chat. Oh, Rug, I guess I haven't got a confirmation on how to pronounce that. Said that he would buy the T-shirt. Pairing is caring. Could be my first merch for Open Source Live.
Next thing you know, you sell 1 million of them and you're funding the whole Ember team.
Oh God, I did that very much. Interestingly, I did open a what was it? Patreon this week because Twitter enabled like a tips feature, and like half of the things that you could connect to the tips feature were like US only. Some of them were Bitcoin, and I'm not very much a Bitcoiny person. And the only thing that I could set up was Patreon, so I did that. And when you're signing up for Patreon, they get you to like upload like a logo or something that you're working on, and they like just automatically put it on merch. And if somebody's been backing you for 3 months, they just send them like a merch item, which is pretty cool. It's interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I
So,
too am on Patreon. I'm also
oh,
on the GitHub sponsor program, which we talked about a little bit.
yes, yes, you're teasing the podcast. Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny because actually that I did a mug with a project that I didn't get a chance to chat about on the podcast, my Authmaker project, which I have done a live stream about. Like I do one live stream a month on a Saturday night. Like it's every 4 weeks, so that changes which Saturday essentially. But that is like 4 hours of me trying to build a project with Authmaker. Yeah, and the only place to get any merch for Authmaker is by supporting me on Patreon, which is interesting. And the person I was calling Rue is actually just Rough, but that name was taken. So yes, happens all the time. I would imagine that for Bento Cantu 93, Bento Cantu was taken already.
It's hard to tell sometimes because that 93, if that's a birth year, for instance, or if that's like a graduation year, that was
Yeah.
an era where a lot of people were attaching numbers to their handles just by default. So I think everybody, like, I think I, for a long time since I was graduating in '07, put 007 at the end of
Oh,
everything.
nice. I like that. Extra little bit of class.
But it worked better when I was going by my real first name of James.
Mm. Ah, yes. There's a whole theme there. Yeah, the whole my whole identity online is usually relate, and that's what I am here on Twitch. But on GitHub, they do not allow underscores, and I refuse to be real -8 on GitHub. But I will break all those links as soon as they support underscores. I'm changing myself from Mansona to relate because I want to be the same everywhere.
I guess I've been very lucky in not having a username that requires any of these problems, hits any of these problems.
But you see, I'm a programmer. I know that underscores are fine. Why are we limiting them from usernames? My God. Anywho, that is our Pomodoro break over. Let's get back to programming. So
All
you just
right.
have the chat open, is that right? You can't see the stream.
I can occasionally, but it lags a bit.
Ah, okay. Yeah, because I was just wondering if you like just because you're just like seeing my screen, I think I'm sharing, but like you haven't seen the overlay on your screen necessarily unless you're watching the stream.
No. All right.
Uh,
So
so Bento is heading on, and he'll catch up on YouTube. But yes, okay. So what have we got? We have got yes. So with collisions, we've added different data to similar names. We want them to collide. And the idea here is that without collisions, we want to still be able to access these links and meta for this to work, essentially. Cool.
great.
Awesome. I've already registered the two models because I saw that that was happening before. And our test adapter is being registered as a application adapter, and the default is being registered as serializer, which I guess is what we want.
It is what we want for this one because we want to be able to confirm that the default JSON API serializer is going to handle this and fix it if it does not.
Perfect. And the first thing we want to do is make.
So let's actually just write these tests as we go through the flow. So probably the first one is the the JSON API serializer preserves the links and meta.
Is that how you would write the test name in this case? Because I was going to say can
Yes.
access. You would say serializer preserves the links and meta.
And specifically, let's put the class name in there because we don't care about serializers generally. We care about the JSON API
Okay, cool.
serializer, and we care about it because it's supposed to conform to the JSON API spec. So if it's deleting information on you that you're trying to send to us, then that's
Yeah,
no good.
different entity
So
of it. Ah, okay. Okay, cool. So
right.
looks like we want to do ourselves a create record pcall render widgets. So this is just specific to what it wanted
Yeah,
to
we can
do.
delete that test.
Yeah, no, I'm just
Yeah, that was
checking.
very
I kept it
specific.
there for just so I could see what it was. So essentially, all we really want to do is get the store and store dot find
So we're gonna
record.
start with, let's get the adapter. I'm actually let's not do the find record. Let's actually just get the adapter and the serializer and test them directly.
Oh,
So
interesting. I don't think I've ever had this
let's do.
experience.
Well,
We want
nope.
to
You
do.
actually you look them up through the store.
Oh,
So you
really?
do want to still start with the store. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So line 64, we'll just do let adapter equals store dot adapter 4.
Oh, interesting. Ah, yes. Oh, I have done this before. Let adapter store dot adapter 4, and you want it to
And
be
we'll
with
just pass in
collisions.
application.
Okay.
No, we'll just pass an application.
Hold
And
on.
then same thing.
So is that because it's registered as application?
There's two reasons here. One, it's registered as application, but
And it,
two,
yeah, I guess it
because we
is.
registered it as application, everything's going to fall back to it.
Yeah, cool.
So in an ideal
That's
world,
really
applications would only ever have one adapter and one serializer per API.
yeah. If their API was perfectly conformant to even just one standard, like
Right, right.
I get up on
And that's
my
why I
high
say
horse
per
about
API.
JSON API being like awesome and just use it. But if you're not going to use JSON API, your API has to conform to your own standard. I don't care what the standard is, but if I need to write 1,000 adapters and serializers, you're doing something wrong. It gets me like really fired up. That okay, so we have our
So
adapter and
here,
serializer.
yep.
Nice.
So we're just going to do, let's get some data here to test. So let's do like let data equals,
So you're just gonna pump it into essentially. Oh, this is interesting. Are you gonna?
and then do await. We're going to await, and then we're going to do adapter that find record.
Okay.
There's a lot of ways to do this, but because we've already set something up to give us the data in the right situation, let's do it.
Do
So
you want to
in this
do
case, let's
with
do
or
it with
without?
collisions.
Okay.
Let's just do with collisions so that we can test the full surface area.
Mm-hmm.
And yep, any old ID. Do me a favor and make that a string ID.
Okay. Yeah.
We will
Can do.
eventually deprecate passing
Uh,
numbers. It could be string one. It just needs to be a string.
yeah. I. It's one of those things where I think you said it earlier on, where you were saying make it be a different type or something that wouldn't conform. You said
Yeah,
falsy as well. You said false, and I was like, oh, things can be falsy, and I just don't like that. Like if it's ID one, I like
right. But
that better than one.
okay, works for me.
It okay.
So now that we have some data,
Hmm?
we're going to call the normalized response method. And so like let result equals,
Is this on the serializer?
and that's going to be, yeah, so this is going to be serializer dot normalized response.
Cool. This is really hard for me
And the
to work
first
with.
argument will be store.
Store. Cool.
The second argument will be schema, which we will have to go grab. We don't have it yet, but we can go ahead and
So
put it in
that's
here.
the model or something, is it?
Yep. So we'll do it's model currently. Like model will satisfy schema, but it's not actually technically model. This is a test we will have to fix later.
Oh, really?
And again, we're not going to use lookup. This is going to be a store.model for with the model name.
Interesting. Cool. That's fine. Let model equal, and then it would be with collisions. This is all really hard for me to type sometimes because being Irish, we use British English and it's normalize, not normalize. So, like every time I get to a Z, it's like forcing the wrong finger to type the wrong character. It's like, oh no. Okay,
So
so
then the third argument here is going to be data.
data, which we've already just
The
pulled.
fourth argument is going to be that string ID1.
Nice. Cool.
And the fifth argument is going to be find record as a string.
Interesting. This
And
is
we can go look at
interesting as a
the API for that.
challenge. Let's go and have a
It
look at
is.
the API for that. Because like this is one of those things where 90% of my my time to serializer.
Select the minimum serializer interface. The adapter interface and the serializer interface is the best docs for this. So
Where is that?
just right below
Minimum.
JSON API serializer, go down. There you go.
Oh, I didn't know that
Yep.
we had
Okay.
serializers for these. Or sorry, interfaces written for these. This is interesting.
Yeah. So
TS. So it's actually a TypeScript interface. Okay. So we've got store, schema, raw payload, ID, and request type. So when we're getting a find record from the adapter, is that just responding what the backend essentially gave us? It's just like,
yep.
that's interesting. I don't think I've ever done
Yep.
that before. I've only ever gone through the store, which for people who aren't aware of Ember Data, essentially what you would get there is like either like an instantiated model or like an array of models, but it's like a record array. It has extra magic in it. But like you just full on use the things that you get back from here and you don't have to worry about what came back from the adapter. But of course, we're testing at each
So
layer. So
when
this
you
is good.
when you call store.findRecord with a type and ID, it basically decomposes into find the adapter, awaits the adapter's response for that same method name, get the result, pass it to the find the serializer, pass it to that serializer with these args, get the result, push that result to the store and return the result of the push.
That's interesting.
So it actually, yeah, it actually decomposes quite nicely. So this is one thing where like Ember Data is actually very composable APIs in general, but sometimes arguments like this is crazy. Like this is something I want to fix. That normalized response takes 5 arguments. Right? We should be
Yeah.
passing in kind of like an operation kind of deal. But uh, overall,
Cool.
though, like outputs of one thing going to another thing, very nice. So
I
now that
assume
we
this
have
is
this
where we
result, we
want to
want to run
start
some assertions on
asserting.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that we want to assert is that on the result dot links is the expected value, and
Um, with
we probably want a
collision,
deep equal here.
with collisions. So we actually want
Um,
this one to be
so
no links.
well, no, because remember with collisions is going to have both.
See, I
Our
don't
payload
know.
always has the top level, and then it has the ones that are in attributes as well.
Okay. So I guess this is the bit where I didn't necessarily see that in the design as to what we're actually
Okay.
going to do here. So you're saying that links should be the actual links and then
Result dot
attributes.
attributes
Oh, hold on. Yeah, so hold
dot
on.
links
We're
will be our
in
other value.
so hold on. Yes, I'm getting lost here. So I was thinking in terms of the store there for a second because I was thinking when we get to the end. But what you said at the beginning of this test effort was you said that we need to make sure that the serializer doesn't remove things from the whatever. So essentially, yes, we could still have a different result at the end if people are going through the store, but we're just checking the serializer's normalized response here. So this
Correct.
should match what the actual thing says. So the top level links should be links. The attributes.links should be this no links string. And that's why you also said it should
Correct.
be a deep equal in this case for sure because it's an actual result.
Yeah.
Is it definitely a
It's
singular
an actual
object there?
object.
Yeah, okay. Boom,
Yeah.
get rid of
The
you.
other thing that we should do here is we should always add a description. So the last argument to any assert is a description for that
Cool.
assert. So just something.
So interesting point, kind of a side track. Is that something that you try to do all the time in Ember Data?
Yes.
Why is my linter not complaining about that right now? Would you appreciate a linter to recommend that there's always a description?
Would love that. I actually think we do lint it, but it may not.
It
I
might
don't
not
know if
be
you've run a yarn
ESLint.
install.
I have.
Okay. If you have run a yarn install, it should lint that. We may have to-dos, lint to-dos really weren't much of a thing
Hmm.
at the point that that lint rule came available, and it might just be that since we have so many errors for it, we haven't turned it on.
So yeah. Have I had the conversation about lint to dos versus lint to the future with you yet?
No, and let's save that for another day.
We'll save that for another day. Is that going to be another Chris cast where we're like fighting against each other?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's just
I just
interesting. Okay, cool. So we'll
want us
worry
to get
about
as far
that.
into this as we can.
Cool. So pretend like the computer screamed at me and you didn't scream at me to add some descriptions. So the top level links are
Resource links.
uh,
Top level resource links are preserved.
where is it? Oh, because it's thanks, whatever. Oh god. Oh, pain. Uh oh. Yeah. What? Oh, it's the other way. Result.link. I want it on the new line. Okay.
It just wants it on the
Got
next
that.
line. Yeah.
That's cool. And then in this one we want gonna ask me to do this in a new line as well. So we'll do that, and we want this to be
Attributes, members, named links are preserved.
Attribute members named links are preserved. What's damn it! That was premature optimization there. I was
Right.
expecting it to.
And so we'll want to do this same thing for the meta, and then let's try to run this test.
You want to just do the exact same thing for the meta down here. So assert dot deep equal result dot meta, and that has to be an object that might not need to be on a new line, but we'll see. And that's going to be
Top level
top
meta
level.
is preserved. Or top level resource meta is preserved.
What are we doing? Yes, it does want it to be on a new line. That's okay. Boop, 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 boop. Nice. And then we have assert dot deep equal result dot attributes dot meta to be, what did we put it in as? It was a number or
I
something.
think we did 996 as a
You
number.
remembered it. Yeah, 996. And then that one has to be attribute members named meta are preserved. Beautiful. Now,
Great.
head where
And known as Ilya is noting the same thing. I was thinking to myself that format on save would be quite nice here.
Oh yeah, no, I so I have a long-standing thing that anybody who knows me knows that I'm a very grumpy old man, and I do not like my editors changing my editor unless I tell it to change my editor. Like, I think
I'm
you,
starting to come around to your point of view.
I think, did you tweet it or no? You mustn't have. You must have put it in Discord recently. You had a relevant anecdote. Do you remember?
Yeah, where certain parts of your code base will just mysteriously be deleted by autosave because like you had a formatting error, and then it thought the rest of the file was unparsable. Um, yeah,
Yeah. It's like I'm totally okay with it being like actually save it and have it complaining and then run fix file, whatever it is, and then do
yeah.
it. If I'm the one who pushes the button to do a fix file, I'm okay with that. But on save, nah, never going to happen for me. Never going to happen. Okay. Sorry,
Just
known
a
as
button in
Ilya.
the UI would be great.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Um,
so
how do I run
to
this?
run this Ember Data, this package, this sub package, right? This
This is
dash Ember
the
Data package,
yeah the legacy package.
right?
I think you called it before.
This legacy package is just a normal Ember add-on.
Okay, cool,
So if
brilliant.
you CD'd into this directory and started the test server, it's going to work just as expected.
Oh, that makes me very happy. I have a issue with a client that I just started where they are using Embroider, which is A1 tip top. But if you, I guess I'll do yarn start. Not that it makes a difference, but if you run npm start or yarn
Ooh, you're one of
start.
those.
Oh yeah, I'm a slash tests guy. I love slash tests.
Oh man.
And I have to fix it in this client because I love it so much. But
So
actually,
so
Embroider
you
makes it
realize
hard.
though that if you run the tests locally, they still pop up in a browser, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I just like.
Okay. Okay.
I
Yep.
totally. I'm a such a fan of the slash tests. uh,
I don't know if I've tried to use slash tests in a long time, so
well, we'll
hopefully
see
that's
if
not
it
broken
works
for you.
now. And known as Cilia is a scholar and a gentleman. He also uses slash tests.
I prefer to separate my build from my serve and my test commands. All three are running
Oh,
separately.
interesting.
Yeah. And that has a lot to do with being able to debug better
So,
because you're not dealing with live reloads. You're able to quickly point at multiple different versions of your app and step between them side by side, that sort of
so
thing.
there's two things that I can't do that. Um, I actually like having the tests, like seeing the UI of the tests, and I use developer mode like almost all the time because what I tend to do, oh, it doesn't seem to be. There we go. What I tend to do. Ooh, let's abort. I should have put in my filter, or I did.
Oh, yeah. We've missed up. We've missed a step, but
That's probably why it's complaining.
the failed test was the very first one. Yep.
There we go. So no model was
Great.
found for with
So let's
collisions.
go. It's because we didn't register it.
We didn't
So on back.
register model with
We
collisions.
didn't register our models. We said model widget versus.
Oh, yes,
So
that's a
one
copy
needs
and
to be
paste
with
problem.
collisions and the other
My
needs to
fault.
be without collisions. Yes.
Apologies. 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 I'll hang my head in shame.
Great. Now how are we doing?
Yes. Okay. Undefined type.
All right.
Our first
Let's
error. This is a real error.
yeah. This is a real error, and it means we messed something up. Let's right click, open up the inspector.
Mm-hmm.
Let's turn off no try catch.
Sure thing. Exactly the process that I do all the time. It's mad. Cool. So I assume we want to go here.
And let's actually one level down
One. Okay,
because
so
the
JSON
assert's
API.
not what we want. We actually want to see why it was failing. And then let's
Mm.
just drop a debugger right there and rerun this.
Make this a bit more readable for the viewers. Have to remember that we're not alone. And we've got 1 minute to find an error. So
So if you go
you
back
wanted this one
to,
here.
yeah, yep.
and just
On line 188,
run this boy.
refresh.
Okay,
And then
so
let's look at what the resource hash that we were given is
type
on the right
cd.
here.
Oh, you want to do it on the right. So you want to do this
Well, I mean,
local
we can
scope?
hover over it too.
No, I'm curious to
What
see
is
what
our
uh,
yeah,
resource hash. It's this one
expand
here.
resource
Ah, yeah,
hash?
because I never use
Yeah.
this one here. Can I make it a bit bigger?
So ID and type are both undefined. That seems problematic. Um, so let's go back.
Does seem problematic. In our
Okay. So what are we?
ID,
So we have our
we
type is
just
model name,
yeah,
and our ID is the ID passed in. And if we go back down to where we called find record, we passed these things in, right?
we
Oh, we forgot to pass the store as the first argument to find record. So everything's offset one and everything's upset. So let's do that.
look. Will it? Oh, we've got a debugger, so it's gonna have to. But yeah, so the anecdote that I was trying to give you there a second ago, ID is better, type is undefined because I'm assuming
All right.
we've passed in the
Because we are
string.
passing in that and we needed the pass in model.
Perfect. But yeah, so what I tend to do is I have like I'm working on a UI, let's say. I would have a bunch of things pushing a bunch of buttons. Oh, brilliant. Good. Push play and see what happens.
We
Or
can
what is this?
probably turn off that. Yeah.
What? Oh, I need to not try
So
catch because we have an error.
the top
Oh.
level resource links are preserved. Turns out not. I suspected as much. Right.
Yay. Okay,
So
so we
this is
have
our
got
first.
a
Let's go code something in the library.
Pomodoro break. So let's go to that and then we can discuss what just happened. So it's almost like you saw the future. You suspected that these things would not be preserved anymore. Oh, yes, I talked to you just as you eat a banana. Sorry about that. I'll finish my my anecdote before you're ready. I use the slash tests all the time with development mode because I write a test, an acceptance test for like the UI or whatever it is, and it's like type something in the input, click a button, open a modal or whatever it is, and then I do a pause test because like I like to test things in place rather than maybe doing an integration test for the component that is the modal, etc. Because that's always quite good for a demo. If you can like show somebody a pause test at the beginning and just like it's as if they've got the app running, let's say. But yeah, that's why I like my
Yeah.
slash tests.
See, I just use a separate tab.
Yes.
Separate, like you can have, because the thing is you can serve and you can serve your tests at the same time.
So
You don't have to add
I
the slash test to do that.
tried that with Embroider and it doesn't work. I don't think.
Is that because Embroider doesn't put out static asset files in the same way?
I
Or
think
is it
it's
because it's trying to tree shake the tests?
oh, that's a good question. I think it's clobbering the like temp output because a lot of the errors were like in slash temp slash whatever it is. And I don't know. I don't
Oh,
know if it's like a race condition.
oh, so you need to do this slightly differently than you're doing it. Um, you don't when you run your test and your serve separately from your build, you only still do one build. You hook your test and your serve up to the main build.
Yes. Okay. That is what I'm not doing. So essentially, it's I'm running the two
Yeah,
builds situation.
yeah. So the way you do that is that the build command has a path that specifies where you want the output to go.
Okay.
And the test and the serve command have a path that specifies where you want the input to come from.
Yeah.
So it's like I think it's output path for the build command, and then it's just path for the test and the serve commands. And because of this, you could do builds of every commit ever in your repository,
Mhm.
and just quickly spin up a test and or a surf against that particular commit. Super makes debugging things where you're trying to go, hey, what changed here? I don't understand why this is broken. It was working before. So much easier to do. And in fact, this is how a lot of the infrastructure for Ember Data works, because we do commit over commit analysis for performance and for asset size changes and that sort of thing. We
Oh,
are literally just running both builds like that. So stashing the output.
that's interesting. That's really interesting. Say that actually would
Cool.
save a lot of time if you're doing like multiple different operations on the same output on, like, I assume GitHub Actions. Is it all GitHub Actions?
It's all GitHub Actions. It it's we were probably Ember Data has tended to lead the core repositories in terms of adoption of things like new CI practices and that sort of
Oh,
thing.
interesting.
Um, in part because I feel our complexity turned out to be high enough with time that we just needed more processing guardrails.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
So like Ember doesn't have the problem of, oh, let me go test against 8 versions of Ember Data. Ember doesn't care if it breaks Ember Data or not.
Hmm.
We, on the other
Hmm.
hand, care if Ember breaks us. And so we're, running against Canary, we're running against Beta, we're running against Release, we're running against all the LTSs. Um, and just, and then because our test suite historically didn't catch as much as we would like it to catch, um, it's because we're victims of Hiram's law. Everything, every observable behavior of our library is used in some way, whether it's an intentional API or not. What we've done is any open source project we can find that has tests that we can run, we wrote a script to go install ourselves into them, and we run their test suite as well when we run our test suite. So, uh, we have like a pretty massive surface area coverage from that, where we kind of get these sense, oh, this is going to break people, that's going to break people.
Yeah.
Um, it's nice.
Sounds sounds interesting. Like, I'd say it kind of feels like
Yeah.
you're like a conductor when you've got it all working. You can just see things kicking off and testing other people's stuff. Um, I'm gonna swap back to programming just so I get the timer going. Zoom. I don't know if you've noticed on the overlay we have this timer that counts down automatically.
I,
Oh,
I I
I
see that.
actually have to go. I don't know if you heard that. My wife's calling me. I'm probably gonna do a be right back. It might be 10,
Okay.
15 minutes, but yeah. So I'll let you know if I'm gonna continue the stream, but I need to be right back.
All right.
Oh, you're still here. Great.
I think that's the key bit.
So, thank you for hanging around. Sorry about that. We had a policeman, a Garda, as we call them in Ireland, showing up, asking questions. Not about me. I haven't done anything wrong, I promise. But yeah, it was my wife asked if they needed to talk to me, and I was like, yeah, we need to talk to everybody in the house. So, God. Anyway, c'est la vie. We still have some viewers as well. Usually when I do a be right back, it's like goes straight down to zero. Nobody's here anymore. There goes Chris into the void
All
again.
right.
Yes, Lux. Absolutely. Okay, so we identified a problem. We have to go diving in. So you're telling me that we have separations based on type. So I'm assuming that because we're doing the result from the serializer, the thing we care about is serializer. Should we check that the data is in the
Correct.
response from the adapter first, just to be 1,000% sure?
So if you were not familiar with how Ember Data operates, then possibly,
Mm-hmm.
but it is part of our public API that whatever you return from these methods is what we're going to be utilizing.
Cool. Okay, that's cool.
We don't,
So
there's nothing intercepting or doing anything else. Like we wrote this
this,
method above in the test, so no need to test the test.
yeah, totally. But essentially, in my case, if I were doing this alone and if I didn't have you sitting on my shoulder helping me out, I would be console logging everywhere and seeing like where the thing went missing, essentially. And then I'd go, oh,
Yeah.
it's gone here. So this is what I should look into. Okay, so Serializer is an add-on. Ooh, fancy. And it's a JSON serializer. So I assume this is where JSON
So
API
no,
serializer comes
no,
from? No? Oh,
no.
JSON API. Sorry. Yes. Is what I meant. Yes, JSON
Yeah,
API is a JSON API, but it's not JSON API. Okay.
I know.
Uh, the
It's
worst
always been
naming
confusing.
ever. It's ridiculous. But c'est la vie. Okay, so we have a serializer. It's extending a thing. I I don't know if you want to use your like magic to kind of tell me where to start
So
looking.
the way I mean, well, you actually want to start with the very first method up there, but let's not do that. Um, so the method that we're calling is normalized response. So let's start by looking for normalized
Oh, that's a
response in
good
here.
spot. That's a good point. So let's just show everybody. Normalized response is the thing that we're actually calling. And that gives us this, which has
Is not the same
a
thing
yes. Oh,
because this is the
that's
underscore
not the
version,
same thing. That's the internal underscore one, which doesn't exist. So that means
which
that
means that let's
it's
go look at where we're extending from.
yes. Let's go on a little adventure. Let's find our adventure. So we're going to JSON serializer. So just let's keep an eye on our file names, people, so that we don't get confused. JSON API and then JSON. So let's find normalized response in here. There's a bunch of documentation. Oh, yeah. Okay. Find record. Okay. So normalize find
So
record response because that's what we're doing, right?
mhm.
Because
Now,
we
now note though, for there might be a moment of panic here looking at that method because there's a lot of different request types.
yes.
There's a lot of different normalizations in this switch statement.
Oh wait. Oh no. Because really, if we want to test this entire API service, we should have a test for every single one of these.
Right.
Uh-oh. Ah.
No, we're going to cheat. We're not going to do that. But, and we're not going to do that because I know how the system works and I know that we don't actually need to do that. But let's start digging through this. So let's go look at what normalized find record response does.
Okay,
Let's
let's
find
keep
that.
going. Keep going. Normalize single response. I imagine that's where the cheat happens, where a lot of them are using normalized single response then.
There's this weird thing with the adapters and the serializers where because we wanted to offer all these hooks, there's kind of like this big branch out and then right back into the same method. Because really, if you were writing your own serializer from scratch, almost all the code that comes back from your API could be handled by one normalized and one serialized method.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's right. So but you
Yeah.
want for configuration reasons when these things were written a long time ago, it's like kind of okay, we're gonna switch out into lots of different individual methods that you could override, and then the default implementation just kind of all funnels it right back to the same thing.
So this is interesting.
So
So with the normalized single response is doing this dot normalized response, and the only thing it's doing is adding true to the end. But I remember that's the thing that I was looking at here. Oh no, normalized response. So correct me if I'm wrong, but calling this dot normalized response in the base class in JavaScript is actually going to call this one, because this is the one that's
correct.
extended, because it's the type of extension. It's not. Yeah. Okay. We're not going to get into the whole different types of polymorphism right now, but
Yeah.
we're now jumping up a layer back to JSON API, and this is the bit that this is actually what's getting called in the end, which
Hmm.
happens to be normalized document helper, which, as you already tipped, it happens to be the first thing in this
Yeah.
class.
So what we see this method doing is we first are checking the data member. If
Mm-hmm.
it's an object, we know that it's just a single resource, and so we're calling
Yes.
normalized resource helper. If it's an array, we're iterating the array, calling normalized resource helper. And then we
Cool.
do the same thing for included, which is always an array, right?
Yeah.
So normalized resource helper, and since we're dealing with resource level links in meta, normalized resource helper is probably the thing we want to go look at.
Cool.
So let's go see what that's doing.
Where are we? Cooly booly. Ooh, we've got some undefined type warnings. So we're doing model name from payload key has model for model class serializer normalize. So my first question here, has it been removed from, so I would do a console log resource hash and then
It
console
hasn't it
log
hasn't been removed yet because
data
notice that we haven't passed data into anything yet, right? That resource hash has not been passed in directly to any other method until this point.
until this point. Yeah, so that's what I mean. So I'm
Right.
essentially checking, what I would check here is before and
Yeah.
after this thing to see if this is our culprit.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Which it will be.
it will be obviously, but I'm kind of
It will be.
essentially what I tend to do in these scenarios. Oh, no console. That disconnected? Is that not
Uh,
the right?
did it rebuild?
It did. It
Oh.
refreshed in here. Are we somewhere else?
Go look at your go look at your build command. This is a quirk of working in a monorepo, I think.
All
Does it look
changed.
like it rebuilt?
Yeah, file
Okay, it
changed.
did.
JSON
Okay.
API.
So the reason I wanted to make sure on that is sometimes if the configuration's not right, if you touch one of the other packages when you're running the
Mm-hmm.
command in the main package, it's not going to cause the main package to rebuild.
Yeah. Cool.
We do this thing where we try very hard to make is developing add-on always be true for local dev, which makes sure that you do rebuild, but sometimes somebody has screwed that up. So we did rebuild, and for some reason um, we are not actually logging there.
Let's
So
just double check
let's
that if I add a um the internal one, I just want to double check. Oh, come on. No, my response method. I just want to double triple check here. Can I even log?
And then let's double check the normalized find record response, what it
So
does maybe.
I can log.
Okay.
So it is. So we're doing find record and we're doing this one. Normalize single response. Do you want me to log as I go?
Let's log normalize single response. But yeah, we can log as you go, or you could just drop a debugger here and let's just step in.
Yeah, let's do that. Essentially, when I'm trying to get used to code base, I tend to console log just to see, because it can sometimes go off and be async and see what happens, and maybe it gets called multiple times or whatever. You can sometimes get a bit confusing. So we're going to go down into single response. This normalized response, which I would have expected to come up on JSON API. Normalized payload is normalized document helper. Cool.
So far we're taking the trip that we thought we were taking.
Yeah. And then we
I
expect
think we can step
to
over.
go over this
I
one.
would.
Yeah, which is what we expected.
Yep.
Uh,
So we're in the method that we thought we would get to.
yeah. So we would have thought that we'd console log this one, but maybe we're getting chucked out before that.
Well, there isn't an early return here,
Unless it's an error.
or I guess it, actually, unless there's an error. Well, no, there is. I guess that's just a warning, but we would have seen the warning.
Yeah, we would have.
So it is. Oh, interesting. So it's saying that we don't have a model. Did we misspell something?
Probably very possible. So what are we checking for? Oh, collisions. With collision. Without collisions. With collisions. Model 4. Oh, I expect it's actually just a full-on typo. No, it's not. Collisions. With collisions. With collisions. Without. So we're doing with collisions first of all, and double checking in here. We're doing with collisions.
No, we're not. See here, it's singular. So
Oh,
we have fallen into the trap of Ember Data uses the Ember inflector, and the Ember inflector has this default behavior of singularizing.
okay.
So
So
all we need to do to fix this is rename our models to not have the S at the end.
okay. So just to keep things sensible, I'm going to do it on everything with collision.
Line 37
With
too.
collision. I'm going to do the left-hand side as well, I assume. And then in here, we're going back down to here. You said line 37? Yeah, good shout.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done these ones. Dun, dun, dun. And that could potentially... let's go back in here. Remove our... Well, I guess...
So this is actually, yeah, I think we can remove this. I think we're going to be good here. But this is actually a very interesting thing to bump into because we've been doing a lot of work to make it where Ember Data doesn't care what you name your models anymore and what your file names are, and it doesn't do that. And I don't know that I was aware that this case was one that could still be hit. So this is actually a call out to that there's probably something that's a bug here.
So, there
But
is
cool.
our smoking gun.
All right.
Right there. We have no links and we have no meta. And that came out of the specifically, where is our console? Yes, we can even log. Oh no, it wasn't in JSON. It was in JSON API. We have two of them. It's in the serializer.normalize. So
Now,
we have come to an end point, I think. So I am about to quit for a bunch of open source meetings. So my stream usually ends in 5 minutes, and we have found a problem. And I think it's a very good cliffhanger to leave it at. And the question is, do you want me to leave continuing on this until our next potential stream in a few weeks? Or do you want me to try and continue on this on my own next week in my own stream?
try to continue on it. Poke around because it'll give you a chance to kind of bump into things without someone to steer the ship. And
You can get your popcorn out afterwards and check out the YouTube, and it's like, oh yeah, he's gonna make all these errors. Okay, cool, awesome.
what I will say though is if you want, go ahead, commit, and open up the PR, even though this is obviously not ready to be a PR.
This one here.
Just be, yeah.
Okay.
Just go ahead and make the commit, open up the PR. That way, one, I can see the progress, but two, it actually allows me to work on it too if I wanted to,
Okay, cool. Yes,
because since
absolutely.
I'm an Ember Data contributor,
So I'm
it
gonna
gives
put in
me,
a.
as long as you keep the box checked,
Oh yeah, I
it
always
lets
do.
me work on yours.
Test for
Was it 322? Is that the number?
the RFC. 332.
I think so. 332.
Yeah, different collection of threes and twos. Add test for resource. What did the test actually call it? Test preserve the links in meta or top level. Cert deep equal blah attribute members name. Top level resource links. Working. Uh-oh. Does that mean that y'all have oh, you don't seem to have Husky. A while to commit. Let's see if I have push.
I think we did do, or maybe used to have, one single pre-commit, which was actually something for QUnit, but I don't remember what we were doing with it. It may even have been the lint rule that you were wondering why you didn't get the notification for on the
Interesting.
asserts.
Okay, so I'm going to do whip add test for the PR is going to be different. Whip RFC
Implement, yeah.
332 implement
Record links and meta implementation.
record links meta. I like to copy and paste because I am the worst speller in the planet. Oh, I've got a backlink, but I don't like that. Whip for now until it actually works. Boom. Draft pull request. Allow edits from maintainers. Cool. Nice.
Very cool.
Awesome. So, Chris, this was very cool. I feel like you have prevented me from multiple hours of trying to find the pieces that I should be changing. which is always a benefit when you get a chance to pair with somebody like this. I had a lot of fun. I hope you had a bit of fun.
I did.
And I hope to see you again on this sometime again soon, if you're
Yeah.
not too early in the morning for you, which it might be, but we shall see.
I'm likely gonna be road tripping next Friday, or I'd say I'd go ahead and pop in, but I'll be on my journey back to Oakland.
Well, good luck on your road trip, and I know we've kind of penciled in like every 3 weeks or something, but do let me know if there's a better time that suits you or otherwise.
I'll
Let
do
me
that.
see. I'm going to go and see if there's anybody to raid at the moment. Do you know what a raid is on Twitch, Chris?
Do I know what it is?
What a raid! I want to go and raid
That's how
somebody.
little I do not know.
So
I do
essentially,
not know what this is.
when you're done with a stream, it's like, oh, we've got like 6 viewers at the moment, and you then start a raid to somebody that you know, and it brings all of those other viewers across to that other streamer. So I'm gonna raid It's Oik, I think we figured out is how he pronounces it. I've kind of watched him a few times, and he's pretty good. So yeah, that's just a thing that we do on Twitch. So yeah,
All right.
thanks again for joining. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. This was lots of fun, and I will see you next week, and hopefully we'll see Chris again soon. Bye.